Something different.
Most dramatic like that. Yeah. All right, for Maggie, your book, Humor Me, is about an improviser falling in love with a senator. Can you talk about how sketch writing compares to writing novels?
For sure. And especially with playwriting. So there's a couple of things that really stick out to me in this transition. The first one is, if you write a play, you don't have to write about the setting at all. Like I actually over time had to learn to write less and less stage direction to leave room for the set designer and the director and all those other people to do all that creativity. So when I got to writing it, I can't just write a novel that's solely dialogue. I would love to, and I do think there are people who would read it, but that's not the medium. So I really had to learn a lot about world building. The other thing that's really fascinating to me is that show don't tell in the theater is very different than show don't tell in a book. I don't even understand it well enough to properly explain that difference, but I was in a critique group and they were like, well, show this, don't tell it. Why don't you just put it in the dialogue and have them say it? And I was like, that's telling it. Like in the theater, you wouldn't do that because you wouldn't say like, I'm feeling this way on stage. You would just, So that was definitely like a big difference. And also the biggest thing for me is a sketch is usually between 7 and 10 pages long. So I can't see the forest at all. Like I'm terrible with seeing overall structure or having a sense of like what the arc of a book is because I'm used to, much shorter stuff. So that's still a learning process for me.
Awesome. All right, and for Meika, have you ever learned anything from writing one of your books? And what character of yours has inspired you?
Well, I think that a lot of writers will agree that a little bit of you ends up in every one of the characters that you write. And generally the first character you write is the most like you, which would be my very first book. She's a writer, she's a lot like me. But she's not the one that I have learned the most from. I think that as I've written, like the more books that I've written, the more comfortable I've gotten with who I am as a writer and as a person. I've learned more and more from each character. So my second book was a character that was dealing with a lot of backstory trauma that really affected who she was at the time when the book opened. And by writing her healing, I learned how to get through my own personal stuff because I was going through it at the time when I wrote that book. But by the time I got to like my last book, both of the characters are really comfortable in who they are and what they want from life. And I think that I've learned a lot from like writing characters like that and being more assertive in my day-to-day life based on like from writing the characters, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. And then for Johnny, your book is a twist on Arthurian legend. What was it like adapting a known story like that into something that's totally your own?
It was a process. I've been obsessed with Arthurian legend since I was like 5-6 years old. I just loved the knight in shining armor. That I became obsessed with fantasy. So when I started writing, I was like, I need something that I'm gonna stick to, so that thing that had been ingrained for 30 years in my head made perfect sense, but it has been told so many times, and I know a lot of those stories, if not most of them. So it kind of gave me an advantage, and I was like, I don't want to tell it from Arthur's point of view, that's boring. I don't even want to tell it from Merlin or one of the knights, so I'm going to tell it from the bad guy's point of view. But the best bad guy is a girl. Let's make him a boy. And then we can make it gay. And then I actually wrote 90,000 words with a premise that I had set in the modern day world. And it was actually based in Michigan, because this was my first attempt at writing. I hated it. It was just a bunch of cushy, fluffy romantic goo, and I scrapped it and started over after world building for 3 weeks and set it in the future. So I twisted it up as much as I possibly could.
Worked out.
90,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No one will ever
crazy. Alright, for Rachel, have you learned anything from dating and relationships from writing about them? And have you experienced growth like any of your characters?
Over.
I'm just saying, like,
I met my husband when I was 20, so I'm like a lucky human in the sense that I found somebody that was worth keeping pretty early on in life. But my life is like a sitcom. Things happen to me that quite literally shouldn't happen to anyone. And when you try to tell them about it, they're like, there's no way. Like, I got locked in my work bathroom after hours. 4 hours. Banging up, you know what I mean? And then I have to tell my boss who's in California, and I'm like, bro, the deadbolt almost sent me to therapy. Like, you almost had, like, stuff like that happens a lot. So I try to take those moments and put them into my books. Something that I still encounter a lot, I think we all have, is just like mediocre white men, mediocre white straight men. And I think that those are just now funnier than ever. Like, one of my favorite stories that really happened to me was I'm a big sports gal. I went to the NBA Finals in 2016 when LeBron won with the Cavs. I went to the game in Cleveland. They win this game. I'm pumped. I'm at the bar. And I'm like, yes, my team won. And this man who had walked with me, but followed me almost to the bathroom, offered me cocaine. And I was like, oh, no, I'm all set. Thank you. And he just lost his mind. He was so mad at me that I didn't want to do this very expensive drug. Good girl syndrome deep down. There's no way. And he was so mad at me, and I was like, I'm having this moment where it's like, you are such a fucking loser. And you are the person that I want to put in these books because we encounter them all the time. So that's the kind of growth. It's like, how do I deal with these people without just punching them in the face? Because that's not appropriate, but it's we encounter these people all the time. So not really my dating life, because I didn't really have one, but more just dealing with the public in general, which is a scary place.
Consider yourself lucky that you never had to date one of those mediocre white men.
I dated a few, but not a long time. No, and my husband's the best, little cynical.
Funny story. Okay.
Yeah, but he's not little, but he's just a cynical. He is a man written by a woman, but I just, yeah. So they are out there. Someone came by. Sorry, I'm not even fine. But someone came by and was like, "I'm never gonna get married. I'm never dating." And I was like, "Sis, I get it, but my man was written by a woman. They're out there. There's also women written by women. They're out there." I get that.
Alright, and then for Deanna, you write female characters that have really good friendships with one another. Is it important to you to show women who support each other instead of compete with each other? Because I feel like that's a really common thing in romance stories.
I had to make up for the last one. Yeah, I didn't want her to say it.
So it's just kind of how my, is this on? Hello? No, did I do something?
Somebody turned it off while they handed it down.
Rachel broke it.
Guys.
It's fine. I want her to die. You can talk. Okay, I have faith. You can do this.
Yeah, we're still gonna pass it though, right? Because we gotta finish it. It feels weird to not finish it.
You have to continue to play hot potato.
Just talk loud.
Okay. So it's just kind of how my book evolved, that the main, the protagonist and her best friend, and then she flashes back to some high school friends, and, there is a fight, but it's not between women in the book, and I don't know, it's just how I'm a big believer of women empowering women, and, yeah, it's just how the story evolved. But the next book, there is a little bit of a stalker situation, so, with a woman and a woman, so.
Love stalker. That is not supporting women.
Right.
Or it's extra supportive, really.
Yeah, that's
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Everybody's perception is they're over yelling. That's right.
It's like a single white female.
contentious response from readers, with some like it and some don't. There's a scene in my book. The conceit is that Michigan's U.S. Senator went to a $5 improv show and fell for the girl in the show. And on one of the weekends that he comes home, he's tired and just kind of wants to hook up. And she's a comedian, and that's me too. So she's spending the evening thinking of all of these government-related puns and jokes that she just like has to get out. And so he's trying to seduce her, and the whole time she's like, "You want to have your ways and means with me?" Like they're just terrible, like on purpose. And he's kind of like, "Babe, come on, can we just get down?" And then there is one that I won't spoil that is an incredibly pinnacle, filthy government pun that happens at a really peak moment. So